Welcome to Facts Intrigue. Today, we're embarking on a journey through the lives and final diagnoses of the early US presidents, from the nation's founding all the way through the late 1800s. In this first part, we'll explore the health struggles and ultimate fates of the leaders who shaped America in its earliest days. From George Washington to William McKinley, each of these presidents left an indelible mark on the young nation, often while facing their own personal battles. Whether you're a history enthusiast or just curious about what ended the journeys of these influential figures, you're in the right place. And if you're new to Facts Intrigue, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into intriguing stories of the past. And for our returning viewers, we're glad to have you back. Now, let's begin our exploration of the final diagnoses of America's early presidents. The United States has seen 45 presidents take office, each shaping the nation in their own way. Today, we explore what ended each of their journeys, the illnesses, injuries, and sometimes violent circumstances that led to their final moments. As of November 10, 2024, 39 presidents have passed on, leaving just 6 still among the living. Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. This information is current as of this video's creation. With Jimmy Carter now 100 years old and in frail health, it's worth acknowledging that even this list may soon change. We hope this does not come to pass anytime soon, yet it remains within the realm of possibility. Let's get started with the founding presidents. The very first president of the United States was George Washington. In December 1799, Washington caught a sore throat that quickly worsened. Medical care in those days was, to put it mildly, primitive. Doctors drained him of 80 ounces of blood over several days, a practice known as bloodletting, which they believed balanced the body's humors. Today, we understand that repeated blood loss can lead to hypovolemic shock, a severe condition that likely hastened his death. John Adams, our second president, lived an exceptionally long life, reaching 90. He died on July 4, 1826, from heart failure, likely related to arteriosclerosis, a common age-related condition in which plaque buildup restricts blood flow to the heart. Did you know that President John Adams, the second president of the United States, was actually the father of John Quincy Adams, who went on to become the 6th president? It's a fascinating connection in US history that many people don't realize. This makes the Adams family one of only 2 father-son pairs to have both served as US presidents, the other pair being George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. Now let's get back to John Adams. John Adams was a key figure in the American Revolution, helping draft the Declaration of Independence, while his son, John Quincy Adams, was a distinguished diplomat before becoming president. Both men left a significant mark on early American history, each contributing to the nation in unique ways. Coincidentally, his friend and fellow founder Thomas Jefferson also died on the same day, exactly 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson's health had been declining due to a combination of chronic diarrhea, kidney damage, and an enlarged prostate, likely cancerous. Jefferson's death was slow and painful, but he too passed peacefully on July 4, 1826. James Madison, known as the father of the Constitution, passed away in 1836 at the age of 85. His cause of death was congestive heart failure, a condition in which the heart struggles to pump blood efficiently, causing fluid buildup in the body. James Madison, one of the fathers of the Constitution, rests peacefully at his beloved Montpelier estate in Orange County, Virginia. Beneath the shade of towering trees, Madison's grave lies in the family cemetery, marked by a simple, dignified stone. Here in the rolling Virginia countryside, he cherished. Madison's legacy as a statesman, scholar, and patriot endures, surrounded by the land that inspired so much of his vision for America. Though quiet and unassuming, this burial site holds a powerful reminder of a man whose ideas helped shape a nation. James Monroe, the 5th president of the United States, dedicated his life to public service, beginning as a young soldier in the Revolutionary War and continuing to the highest office in the land. He holds the unique distinction of being the last US president to have fought in the Revolutionary War, linking him to the nation's founding struggle for independence. A key figure in the Virginia dynasty, a group of 4 out of the first 5 presidents who hailed from Virginia. Monroe carried on the principles of his predecessors George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. Known for his loyalty to Jeffersonian ideals, Monroe shared his mentor's vision of westward expansion and the importance of a strong, unified republic. Monroe's presidency, which spanned from 1817 to 1825, came to be known as the era of good feelings. It was a period of relative political harmony, with the Federalist Party having faded, leaving the Democratic Republicans as the only major political force. During these years, Monroe sought to maintain unity, overseeing a time of economic growth and national pride. Yet, despite his achievements, Monroe was known for his old-fashioned mannerisms and style, which seemed out of place in the changing fashion of the early 19th century. As he aged, Monroe's health began to decline. James Monroe, in 1785, contracted malaria while visiting the Mississippi River and would come down with fevers as a result for years to come. In 1825, he suffered a severe seizure that nearly killed him. In 1830, he developed a chronic lung illness, probably pulmonary tuberculosis, that made it hard to breathe and caused him to cough up wads of blood. In his final months, he moved to New York City to live with his daughter, where he quietly slipped away on July 4, 1831, mainly from pulmonary tuberculosis. Remarkably, Monroe, 5th President of the United States, became the 3rd founding father to pass on Independence Day, joining John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who had both died 5 years earlier, to the day in 1826. Monroe's symbolic departure on the nation's anniversary served as a solemn reminder of the legacy and ideals that these early leaders instilled in the young republic, a legacy Monroe carried as the last president to have served in the fight for independence. John Quincy Adams, son of John Adams and the 6th President of the United States, was a man of principle and intelligence. A lifelong diplomat, he had a distinguished career that included negotiating the Treaty of Ghent to end the War of 1812. Adams was appointed as a key member of the U.S. delegation sent to negotiate peace with Great Britain. Alongside figures like Henry Clay and Albert Gallatin, Adams helped broker the Treaty of Ghent, which formally ended the war. The treaty, signed on December 24, 1814, restored relations between the US and Britain without territorial gains or losses, but it reinforced American sovereignty and symbolized the country's resilience. Adams' diplomatic skill in Ghent highlighted his dedication to American interests and set the stage for his later career as a statesman and president. Yet, his single term as president was marked by struggles with political opposition. In 1848, Adams suffered a stroke while on the floor of the House of Representatives, a body he returned to serve in after his presidency. He died days later at the age of 80, having dedicated his life to the nation he helped shape. Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, was a man of both fierce determination and deep controversy. Born on March 15, 1767, Jackson rose from humble beginnings, experiencing the hardships of the American frontier and the Revolutionary War. Known as Old Hickory for his toughness, Jackson became a national hero during the War of 1812, particularly for his leadership in the Battle of New Orleans. His military success propelled him into politics, where he championed the common man and ushered in a new era of American democracy. Jackson served 2 terms from 1829 to 1837, marking a time of significant change and tension. His presidency was characterized by bold policies, including his fierce opposition to the National Bank, his defense of federal power, and his controversial enforcement of the Indian Removal Act, which led to the forced relocation of Native American tribes. While Jackson saw himself as a protector of democracy, many viewed his actions as harsh and divisive. In his later years, Jackson retired to his estate, the Hermitage, in Tennessee. Despite numerous health struggles, ranging from chronic infections to the after-effects of duels, Jackson lived to the age of 78. He passed away on June 8, 1845, leaving behind a complex legacy as a leader who shaped American identity, but whose policies remain contentious. His impact on the nation endures, for better or worse, as that of a president who ruled with conviction and changed the course of American history. We've covered quite a few presidents so far, some familiar and maybe some surprising. Are there any presidents we've reviewed who you hadn't heard much about before? Or perhaps some new details that surprised you? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay with us on this journey through presidential history. Now let's move on to our next president, Martin Van Buren. Van Buren, the 8th President of the United States, holds a unique place in history as the first president born after the United States declared independence. Wait, hold up. What does that mean? Let me explain. At one time, the United States was actually under British rule, as a collection of colonies. Every previous president had been born as a British subject, meaning they were born before the American colonies broke free from British control in 1776. So by birth, they were subject to British laws and the British Crown. But Van Buren, born in 1782 in New York, came into the world as an American citizen, a distinction that marked a new generation of American leadership. President Van Buren was known as the Little Magician for his political skill. Van Buren played a key role in building the Democratic Party alongside Andrew Jackson. He served from 1837 to 1841, facing economic upheaval from the Panic of 1837 that dominated much of his term. Despite his efforts to restore stability, Van Buren couldn't overcome the economic downturn's effects on his popularity. After leaving office, he continued his political journey, even running for president again under a different party. In his later years, Van Buren's health declined, and he passed away quietly at his home in Kinderhook, New York, on July 24, 1862, at the age of 79. The cause of death was bronchial asthma and heart failure. Van Buren's legacy endures as that of a skilled political strategist and the first president born into the newly established United States. Who was the first president to die in office? That would be William Henry Harrison. President Harrison was the 9th President of the United States and was born on February 9, 1773, and died on April 4, 1841. President Harrison holds the unfortunate title of the first president to die in office, and his presidency was the shortest, just 31 days in office. Originally, his death had been attributed to pneumonia, believed to have been brought on by delivering a lengthy inaugural address in the cold, without adequate protection. However, modern researchers have offered another theory. In 2014, historians suggested that the true cause may have been enteric fever, a bacterial infection linked to poor sanitation. At the time, the White House had serious issues with water contamination, which could have exposed Harrison to deadly pathogens within the White House. Though pneumonia remains the widely accepted cause, this alternate theory sheds light on the challenging conditions presidents once faced, conditions that were as dangerous as any political crisis. John Tyler, the 10th President of the United States, is often remembered as the first vice president to ascend to the presidency after the death of his predecessor, William Henry Harrison. Tyler's assumption of the role in 1841 set a vital precedent for presidential succession, but it also earned him the nickname His Accidency. Tyler's presidency was marked by a mix of achievements and controversies. He firmly defended states' rights, often clashing with his own party, the Whigs, leading to his expulsion from the party while still in office. Despite the political strife, Tyler oversaw significant developments, including the annexation of Texas, which set the stage for future territorial expansion. Later in life, Tyler's loyalty to his home state of Virginia led him to side with the Confederacy during the Civil War. In 1862, at the age of 71, Tyler suffered a stroke and passed away in Richmond. He remains the only former president not honored with a US flag at his burial, as his allegiance to the Confederacy overshadowed his earlier contributions to the nation. Tyler's legacy is complex, defined by his steadfast principles and the critical precedent he set for presidential succession. James K. Polk, the 11th President of the United States, was a man of immense ambition and focus, earning the nickname Young Hickory for his loyalty to Andrew Jackson's ideals. Polk served from 1845 to 1849, promising to accomplish 4 major goals during his presidency, and remarkably, he achieved all of them. These included settling the Oregon boundary dispute, reducing tariffs, re-establishing an independent treasury, and expanding the nation's territory. Under Polk's leadership, the United States grew by over 1/3, acquiring vast territories through the Mexican-American War and the annexation of Texas. However, these accomplishments came at great personal cost. Polk worked tirelessly throughout his presidency, often at the expense of his own health. True to his word, Polk chose not to seek a second term, leaving office in 1849. Exhausted and in declining health, he contracted cholera just 3 months after leaving the presidency. On June 15, 1849, Polk passed away at the age of 53, making him the youngest president to die after leaving office. His brief retirement and untimely death serve as a somber reminder of the toll the presidency can take, even on its most determined leaders. Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, was a celebrated military leader long before he entered politics. Known as Old Rough and Ready for his tenacity and leadership during the Mexican-American War, Taylor's battlefield victories earned him national fame and propelled him to the presidency in 1849. Despite his lack of political experience, Taylor took office with the intention of preserving the Union amid growing tensions over slavery. However, his presidency was short-lived. On July 4, 1850, Taylor attended Independence Day celebrations in Washington, D.C., where he reportedly consumed a large quantity of raw fruit and iced milk. Days later, he fell seriously ill with severe gastrointestinal symptoms. Modern historians speculate that he may have suffered from cholera, acute gastroenteritis, or another infection common in the era. On July 9, 1850, just 16 months into his term, Taylor passed away, making him the second U.S. president to die in office. His untimely death thrust Vice President Millard Fillmore into the presidency. Taylor's legacy remains tied to his military service and his brief but determined effort to hold the Union together during a turbulent time. Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States, ascended to the presidency in 1850 after the sudden death of Zachary Taylor. A New York native with humble beginnings, Fillmore was a self-made man who climbed the political ladder through hard work and determination. As president, Fillmore worked to maintain the fragile balance between free and slave states in the years leading up to the Civil War. One of his most notable actions was supporting the Compromise of 1850, a series of laws intended to ease tensions over slavery. While the Compromise delayed secession, it came at a cost, as the inclusion of the controversial Fugitive Slave Act alienated many abolitionists and tarnished Fillmore's legacy in later years. After leaving office in 1853, Fillmore largely retired from politics, though he remained active in civic life. His later years were marked by declining health, and on March 8, 1874, he passed away at the age of 74 from a stroke. Millard Fillmore's presidency may be overshadowed by the looming conflict of the Civil War, but his efforts to hold the Union together during a turbulent time remain a part of his complex legacy. Franklin Pierce, the 14th President of the United States, served from 1853 to 1857, during one of the most tumultuous periods in American history. A New Hampshire native and a member of the Democratic Party, Pierce was a seasoned politician and a veteran of the Mexican-American War. His presidency, however, would become overshadowed by the growing divide over slavery. Pierce signed the Kansas-Nebraska Act into law, a controversial piece of legislation that allowed settlers in those territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. While intended to appease both sides, it inflamed tensions, leading to violent conflict in what became known as Bleeding Kansas. The act deeply damaged Pierce's reputation, and his inability to calm the growing discord cost him his party's nomination for a second term. Pierce's personal life was marked by tragedy. He and his wife, Jane, endured the loss of all 3 of their children, with their youngest son dying in a train accident just weeks before Pierce took office. After his presidency, Pierce struggled with grief and alcoholism, retreating into a quiet life in New Hampshire. He passed away on October 8, 1869, at the age of 64 from cirrhosis of the liver. Franklin Pierce's legacy remains a somber reminder of the nation's fracturing unity in the years leading to the Civil War. James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States, holds the unenviable distinction of being the only bachelor to ever serve as president. A lifelong politician and skilled diplomat, Buchanan took office in 1857, during one of the most divisive periods in American history. While he hoped to calm the tensions between North and South, his presidency is often criticized for inaction as the nation slid closer to civil war. Buchanan believed that slavery was a matter for individual states and territories to decide, a stance that alienated many in the North. His support for the pro-slavery Lecompton Constitution in Kansas further inflamed sectional tensions. Though he claimed he wanted to keep the Union intact, Buchanan's leadership failed to prevent the Southern states from moving towards secession. After leaving office in 1861, Buchanan retired to his Pennsylvania estate, Wheatland, where he lived quietly during the Civil War. His health gradually declined, and he passed away on June 1, 1868, at the age of 77 from respiratory failure. James Buchanan's legacy remains one of controversy, as many view his presidency as one of missed opportunities during the nation's most perilous time. As we near the conclusion of Part 1 of Facts Intrigue's Final Diagnosis series, we arrive at one of the most iconic figures in American history, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Lincoln's life and leadership have become enduring symbols of unity, sacrifice, and perseverance during one of the nation's most turbulent and defining chapters, the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln remains one of the most revered figures in American history. Born on February 12, 1809, in a humble log cabin in Kentucky, Lincoln's life was a testament to perseverance and the enduring power of ideas. Rising from poverty, he became a self-taught lawyer, an eloquent orator, and a staunch opponent of slavery's expansion. His election to the presidency in 1860 marked a turning point for a nation on the brink of civil war. Through the bloody years of the Civil War, Lincoln's leadership preserved the Union and redefined the nation's ideals. The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 and the eventual passage of the 13th Amendment forever ended slavery, cementing Lincoln's legacy as the great emancipator. Yet his presidency was not without immense personal struggle. The loss of his son Willie in 1862 and the weight of the war took a visible toll on Lincoln, both emotionally and physically. On April 14, 1865, just days after General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox, marking the end of the Civil War, Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. It was there that John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer, fired the fatal shot that struck Lincoln in the back of the head. Despite the efforts of doctors, Lincoln succumbed to his injuries the following morning, becoming the first U.S. president to be struck down during office. Lincoln's death plunged the nation into mourning. Millions paid tribute to the man who had held the Union together and transformed the moral compass of a divided nation. His legacy endures as a beacon of resilience, courage, the pursuit of justice, and the vision that defines the presidency. As we close Part 1 of Facts Intrigue's Final Diagnosis series, Lincoln's life and tragic end serve as a poignant reminder of the trials and triumphs that define the presidency. Join us in Part 2 and Part 3 as we continue exploring the final diagnoses of those who followed in his footsteps. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay with us on this journey through history. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay curious.